It's Don here from the board. Thanks for coming along and checking out this video. Today's video, I'm going to be having a quick look at the Zeal V2 switch. Now, this switch comes courtesy of our very good supporter, Mitenolet. So, absolutely amazing person who keeps sending me stuff to make content. And, of course, love and appreciate it as always. So let's not waste time and get over onto the desktop and actually see what we're talking about. Now, I'm a little bit scatterbrained today. I've just got home from work. I've got I've got an opportunity to do this without a bit of distraction from my daughter and everything else. So my mind is not fully fleshed out, and I am still a little bit sick, unfortunately. So you'll have to bear with me. So here is the Zeal V2, and these are 67-gram strings, as you can see written on the packet here. Here is my switch collection, and the actual switch collection, I have an area which is basically tactile switches, so it sort of runs from about there onwards to about that sort of edging, and these are of course linear. So we've got some browns there, we've got some Atemu switches here as well, and then we run into the Royal, the Novel Keys Kailh Royal. Then we've got Halo switches, Halo True, Halo Clear, and then we've got that's the Atemu Purple, and this is actually a Zeal V1. So that's what I'm going to be comparing against. The only thing is I actually don't know what the switch weight of that Zeal switch is. But I do have kind of a game plan that I can play with. But first and foremost, I want to know if there's any physical visible differences, because if there isn't, it's going to be a bit of a challenge for me to distinguish them if I accidentally get them mixed up. So let's crack open this packet. I actually haven't taken a single one of these out yet, but I have been playing with them through the packet. So this will be my first foray into what they're actually like. Okay. Now, on first appearances, I can tell that the stem color is actually a lot darker than the V1s, so that's a good thing in terms of being able to distinguish between the two. So if I put them, if I lift it up, and if the camera will focus, you can see actually the stem colors there. While they're very close, the actual V2 is definitely a shade darker. It might not be coming across on the camera very well, but I can tell you in real life, you can definitely tell that there is a much darker hue. Now the actual housing itself looks pretty much the same. It's clear top, clear bottom. Yeah, I would not say that there's very much difference except for purely the color of that stem. Now if I have a look at it from underneath to check against the V1, it's pretty much standard. So that's what I'm going to have to be basing everything on. Now I do have a bit of background noise there, but you know what I've actually done? I've actually left my little switch tester thing from Laser Ninja in the other room, so bear with me one moment. Alrighty, and we're back. So this is what I'm talking about. This is just a advanced switch tester with from Laser Ninja. Thank you very much, of course. And because you would have seen in the previous video, also I now have a switch puller. So I'm not going to get my switches stuck in this like I did last time, where I actually had to take the whole thing apart to push the switch out. That'll give me a good idea on being able to compare these side by side straight up as well. So let's just take that out. Right. It's yoink. There we go. So the first thing that I want to do is just going to feel that in isolation by itself, really. Wow. Okay. They're very different. They're extremely different. so different that had somebody not told me that I was dealing with Zealio switches, I would not have guessed at all that it was a revision. They're so different that I wouldn't even call them the same thing. Like, yeah, okay. So what I was going to do, now that I've got my chain of thought back again, is I'm going to do the old press test, and you can see that the V1, oh, okay, that's actually really good. You can see now that they've come out, that when you get further away, not so close, and it's fuzzy, but you can actually see that the V2 on the right hand side, the stem's actually darker than the left hand side. So it's definitely noticeable in that non-focused sort of, not so easy to see when it actually is in focus. It's a little bit weird, but definitely a lot easier to see when it's further away. Yeah, you can see the color tones are there. But so the V1 is on my left and V2 on my right, and as I press them together, you'll see that this one is definitely not a contender for the spring response. Now, they feel so different that I can't actually tell what the spring weight is, but it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So let's just shove this in. Which way is it meant to go? Does it matter? No, not really. Alright. So let's just get their orientations the same. There we go. Okay. And yeah, so it's so distinct that the only way that I'm going to describe it is this view, the V1 Zeal is like a traditional tactile switch. And what I mean by a traditional tactile switch is it's like a Brown switch in that the force curve comes up and has a bump and then comes down. So it's like bump, down. The V2 tactility is like the whole new generation of switches, which is that negative tactility that I sort of coined as a phrase a long time ago, where you actually have a immediate higher peak starting point, and then the bump is the loss of that activity. And it's very noticeable. So I don't know if that is going to show very well, but if I push on that, it collapses straight away. Whereas if I push on the V1, see how it has this section where that section is the peak of the tactile bump, and then it falls away, right? This is you can see I'm only using this finger on my right hand, and I'm just gently nudging that, and then it falls off. Whereas here, the actual tester is flexing, and then it just pops. So that's really the best way I can show you and describe to you what is actually happening here. And this is reminiscent of these new Kailh switches. Now, I don't have a Holy Panda, so I actually don't have the means to compare against what seems to be the Holy Grail that people are always talking about, which is the Holy Panda and its clones. So when we talk about clones, we're talking about the Jesus switch, we're talking about, you know, Helios and T1s from KBD fans and stuff like that. I don't have any of those switches. I've only got the base switch here for the stem, which is the Halo switch. And if I rotate that, once again, there's no soft point. It just falls away straight away. And the clear is a firmer spring, so see, it's just building up and then it pops away. The Royal switch here, the box Royal, oh sorry, that's the Navy, my bad. The Royal switch, which is this one here, it's got a little bit of a give, but you see it's not much of a give compared to the V1, and then it just pops away. On the Arctos switches, that's much more like a traditional, so there's a lot more give and then it bumps over. And on the heavier version, there's still a little bit of play there before that top peak. So if your preference is to be a soft entry with a bump up and down, then the Zeal V1s is going to deliver that performance. It's going to deliver that feel and that sensation. If you like a hard edge and the collapse, that fall away, that negative tactility sensation, because really what you're doing is you're pressing up against a ramp that goes straight up, and then as soon as you clear it, you're back down again. So I think the V1s give you play when you rest your fingers on it, if you rest your fingers quite hard, and well, not hard but heavily, whereas the V2s don't budge at all. So it's nice and firm until you get that activity in. So let's just do a little bit of sound, I suppose, mashing. So the V1s, well, I'm just going to wait for the background noise. Okay, so this is V1s. And then the V2s. V1s. V2s. So the response on the V2 is actually louder, and that doesn't surprise me because having that very fast fall away means the return when the spring is engaging is going to cause the stem to hit the top housing much harder. So the actual down press is no different really sound wise. The collapse doesn't change a lot of the sound, but it's the return of the actual stem into the housing hits harder. And I guess that's kind of like what people were talking about with the Royals, is that with the lube on the Royals, when they started wearing away, it was actually turning the Royals more louder because the spring return was actually hitting the top housing harder, and therefore it was getting noisy. So there you have it. Now, because of Mitenolet's generosity, I have a bag of them here. I believe it's enough to actually build a 60%. At some point when I've actually got enough keycaps again, I do still have some bits and pieces over there courtesy of Kailh that I can put together a 60%. Then I will make a keyboard for the Switch library to join the rest of the collection there, and have some V2s as part of that for direct comparison against these other switches that are already part of the library. Now, to use this puller tool properly, let's see how it goes with, oh, there it goes, and there it goes. That was a lot easier compared to last time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to relocate that one there. So we've still got some, I suppose, continuity there between the Halo switches. I'm going to put the V1, which is that one, back in its original place, and I'll put the V2 now below it. There we go. I think I'm going to need a bigger switch collection holding kind of item. My 60% starting to fill up, and it's also getting challenging to continue as well in the same fashion. But we'll see how it goes. Well, thank you very much, Mitenolet. Love your work. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I may be getting some Hako Violets and also some Otemu Sky switches at some point to play with and to try. So we'll see how that turns out as well. And of course, they'll add to the rest of the collection. Thank you very much for checking out the video. Don't forget, we have our weekly podcast. You can find us at libsyn.com, and you can look for the Board Podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and you can also, of course, visit our website, www.theboardpodcast.com, and add our RSS feed to your favorite podcast app. Got an Instagram that I just put random stuff on, for example, the Down Bubble project that I'm working on, and of course, If you would like an invitation to our Slack group, just send me an email to theboardpodcast@gmail.com. So, as usual, until next time, happy clacking.